All right, welcome back to the channel. So Jamal Charlo responds to David Benavidez, says, I will knock your punk out. Let's make the fight happen. Gotta love it. That is about a championship fight, or not a championship fight, a matchup at 168 pounds between what I think is the best 160 pounder and the best 168 pounders in the world. Some Canelo fans ain't gonna like it, but that's just my take. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back. So Jamal Charlo is one of my favorite fighters. I think this guy deserves to be in the top 5 pound for pound. Has been a long time champ, was a best fighter at 154 when he was there. Dominated 154 when he was there. Well, I don't say dominated because he was there with his brother, but a top 154 pounder. Then he moves up to 160 pounds. He's a top, if not the top 160 pounder. I know people are going to say Canelo, but he's not there anymore. There's also Demetrius Andrade, but Demetrius Andrade just doesn't have the track record that Jamal Charlo has. And I would love to see that fight, but I think Jamal Charlo right now is the best at 160 pounds. I think he beats Gennady Golovkin. I think that he can beat Canelo Alvarez. But, you know, people don't necessarily want to fight the guy. So when Canelo Alvarez started talking about going up to 168 pounds, and Jermall, I think it was after the last fight that took place with Callum Smith. I think it was Callum Smith because Canelo had beaten Liam Smith and then he beat Callum Smith, right? So after the last Smith brother victory that he had, Canelo started talking about who else he was going to fight, right? And he said, well, I'm only going to fight at 160 for Errol Spence. That's what I recall. And he said, but I'm fighting at 168. So Jamal Charlo said, look, I'll move up to 168. No worries. I have no problem. He wants to go to 168. I'll go to 168. He wouldn't fight me at 154, won't fight me at 160. Hey, man, I'm bigger than him. If he can go to 175, I'll go to 175 with him. So what? He just can't escape. That's what I think internally Jamal Charlo was thinking and expressing through the words coming out of his mouth. But it's pretty much like that was his thing. Like, Canelo cannot go move up weight classes to get away from me. I'll fight him. I was at 154. I was at 160. I mean, the higher it goes, the better it goes for me because I'm a bigger guy, right? So, but in the midst of this, there's another guy David Benavidez, who is, I think, the best guy at 168 pounds. Now, there's Canelo that's there. Canelo is a special case, man, okay? And it's not, and he is not impressing me with his choice of opponents, okay? It's just, come on, man. Maybe his knees are getting a little tired. Maybe he's just trying to save it, collect the paydays, and then he's going to take a big fight. But no, man, he's moving from, who was the last guys that the guy fought? Sergey Kovalev was washed up at 175. Callum Smith at 168. So what? This next fight, though, with Canelo is going to be a tough fight with Billy Joe Saunders. I don't believe that is a fight like a Jamal Charlo fight, but it does present him with something, a set of problems that we've not seen him with in a minute, which is how's he going to track down an elusive fighter? So while I'm going through this, I don't want to go too hard on that Billy Joe Saunders Canelo fight because I think that's a solid fight. I think that's an acceptable fight. Billy Joe Saunders is a solid fighter, even though he didn't look the best in his last fight. I think he'll be better for this fight coming up than he was for the last, just because of the focus and the familiarity he has with his opponent. But I say that to say that Jamal Charlo, that David Benavidez, I think, is the guy at 168 pounds. That's the best guy there. Now, why doesn't he have a championship? The first time, that's 100% on him, right? He had a controlled substance. Right, he was caught with a controlled substance in his body, and he lost his belt. Now, kind of so was Canelo, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, a whole bunch of people are getting caught with stuff, man, and But anyway, they make an example of David Benavidez. David Benavidez loses his belt, then he wins it back again, but then he loses it again on the scale in the middle of a pandemic, right? Now, really, what should have happened if he had the leverage to do it. He's like, look, I'm not going to make weight. There's no way. I can't work out in this bubble, right? I have to lose a lot of weight. So I thought that was a really tough situation for him, that if he would have just been allowed to have a fight above the weight division, above it, and not have the belt on the line, that he could have came back and still had his belt. So nobody has beaten David Benavidez out of that WBC belt in the ring, okay? So to me, I know that he messed up, but that is definitely should be considered a champion in that division, really. So a fight between David Benavidez and here's the other thing. David Benavidez, I'm sure, would like to fight Canelo, but Canelo says that he's not going to fight Mexican fighters, and that, my understanding, is where David Benavidez falls. He's Puerto Rican and maybe Mexican and Ecuadorian or something like that, but he falls into the line of people that, for some reason, the boxing world says it's okay for Canelo just to say he's not going to fight anymore, right? Like, that would be like Errol Spence saying, I'm just not going to fight any more American welterweights. How do you think that would be taken by his most ardent supporters? The most ardent Errol Spence Jr. supporters in the world would not be trying to hear that, man. Like, come on, Errol. You can't just say you're not going to fight Terrence Crawford. You're just not going to fight them because they're American and you've decided that you fought enough American fighters, right? But with Canelo, for some reason, money, the media just skips out on that. So David Benavidez is stuck in a position, right, where he doesn't have a belt that he really believes is his, right? Then the guys that have the belt won't fight him, right, because they feel like he's Mexican. Like, it's just stupid. But so what else is David Benavidez supposed to do other than to say, oh, well, once Jamal Charlo figured out, well, he already knew. Once Jamal's like, no, I'm going to stay at 160 because I'm not going to get the Canelo fight. He's got 3 of them lined up. Then David Benavidez comes and says, look, man, I want to fight somebody, and Jamal Charlo just suckered out. So he's out there doing the clout chase, not the clout chase thing, but you know what it is, man. It's like what Devin Haney does, man. Like, Devin Haney is being ducked by Teofimo Lopez for sure, right? But he's not being ducked by everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody that you call out when you got a fight date, that doesn't mean you're ducking them. That means you're just hyping your fight and pulling their name into the middle of your production, into the middle of your promotion, right? But guys that are legitimately being ducked by people like David Benavidez, Billy Joe Saunders don't want no David Benavidez. Canelo don't want no David Benavidez. None of these dudes trying to fight David Benavidez, because David Benavidez, say what you want, is an absolute monster, man. And he's very, very young. And if he gets a jab and a straight right hand, like he makes that slight improvement and can just start beating guys from the outside, it's going to be a lot of trouble. And honestly, I think he beats Caleb Plant too. But when Jermall Charlo, he talks about Jermall was like, hey, man, I'll knock your little behind out, right? I'm not going to cuss for him. He said, hey, man, make the fight. So it looks now like, hey, they can make this fight. Jermall would be willing to move up there and fight him. If Jermall is that anxious to fight and that willing to fight David Benavidez, I'm going to tell you, I think David Benavidez might be in some trouble. Now, I've looked at this a little bit more closely lately. I did a video maybe 2 days ago about it, but that jab straight right hand of Jamal Charlo and the jab to the body and the straight right to the body and those hooks coming and the jab hook, man, I'm telling you, David Benavidez better not just try to walk that dude down. If he just tries to walk down, just continually tries to walk down Jamal Charlo, he's going to run into something that's going to be very ugly, and he'll lose a lot of rounds. But I think that David Benavidez is such a talent that it may turn out differently just off his raw hand speed. But all in all, I love the fight. I like both these guys. Man, I hope that this fight actually happens. Because, hey, man, who else is Jermall going to be able to fight and David Benavidez going to be able to fight when you got the whole rest of the boxing world making excuses for the rest of these guys not fighting them? But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.